Hello, this is Brian Lass, your special education teacher here, and I just want to give you a brief overview of typography. So, typography is the design and use of typefaces as a means of communication. It's actually a very important part of visual communication. So, think for a moment about fonts and how they communicate. So, um, some of the things and some of the ways that they can communicate is basically they can communicate strength, they can communicate power, they can communicate emotion, they can communicate personality as well. So try thinking of some of the company logos that only uses typeface. For instance, Coca-Cola. So everybody knows that whenever they see Coca-Cola, everybody knows what that means. So it's easy to spot. If you notice that, you'll see signs literally all over the place advertising Coca-Cola, and sometimes they're not even advertising. It could be just displayed on a machine, or it could be displayed um, at a store, and it couldn't even be related to anything. But every time someone sees the Coca-Cola typeface or in the color red, they all know what that means. So having typeface is very important part of visual communication. So we're going to also take a look at some of the things about um, typeface as well. If you notice that the font you choose to display text is every bit as important as the voice you use to speak. If you want a reader to not only understand what they're reading, but also to remember it as well. So the primary purpose of type is not really just to be readable, but it's to convey information that is to be remembered. So surprisingly, readability might not always lead to the best information retention. So think about the last time that you really heard something really neat or you heard a great talk from somebody. And I want you to try to remember the content of that speech and think about why is it that you know what the speech was about? Was it because the information that was being relayed was very compelling? Or was it because the speaker spoke compellingly? So um, communication is very important. So hopefully, or it could be a combination of the speaker doing a little bit of both of it. But also, I want you to think about no matter how vital the content of the speech, a speak a speaker who basically speaks in a monotone will pretty much lose other people. So if you want to make a lasting impression, then someone who's then you have to listen to somebody who speaks with animation and someone who speaks with purpose. So when we think about this, we try to spend a little bit more time considering the type of font or the typeface we use to communicate our messages in our classroom and to communicate instruction to our students. So all too often, we typically stick with just a few fonts that's provided on our computer and basically whatever's defaulted. Um, but we like to think that there is actually more power behind fonts when we use fonts. And so some of the ways that we use fonts in our classroom is creating when we're creating picture cards or pet cards. So I have a lot of visual learners and I have several nonverbal students who are not able to communicate. So a lot of times they have to select a pet card to be able to communicate what their wants and their needs are. And so usually when we create our pet cards, we have an object or a picture of something, and then we underneath it we would have a word attached or relating to what that object or that picture is about. So when they see the font, we want to be able to make that instant connection of what the picture that they're choosing or picking. And so it's important that when we choose our font, that we want to be able to choose a font, not just any font, but we want to be able to choose a font that will communicate the object that they're choosing. Another way we use typeface, or that we think about when we use typeface, is when we're reading. And during our reading, we also work on sight words. So we have a software where we can create our own sight words, and we can actually choose the different types of fonts. And we found that by choosing specific fonts, it actually helps students retain the word that they're trying to remember. They're able to retain it much more quickly than if we were to just simply put a basic font style up there. So when we're creating or we're getting into more difficult words, vocabulary words, we want to be able to use certain fonts that kind of pops out to them, so that way they remember that word and remember the style of that word, and it helps them retain what the word was that they saw before. And also too, when we're doing our reading as well, we actually have books. We create books for kids to be able to read that has the types of uh, the types of words that they're learning as well, to be able to come together and build off that as well. So we're careful in selecting our font style as well, so that when they're reading their story or reading their book, that it's also retaining, helping them retain the information that they're receiving from this. So I hope you enjoyed this little brief overview about typeface. Thank you so much.